We all remember our first crush, right? Whether that was back at school or at work. I mean, some of us might be crushing pretty hard on someone right now. It's that one person that when you see them, your hands get kind of clammy and the words don't really word if you start trying to talk to them. And you've got to act cool, of course. They've got to know you're this cool, mysterious person, even though you're not coming across in that way at all. But regardless, it's cute, it's harmless. It's one of those really sweet things about just being human. Well, today's episode follows a man named Carl Tanzler and his very big crush. And when I say big, I really mean it. You'll see. Grab yourself a cuppa, get comfy, and find yourself haunted no longer by the thought of that embarrassing high school crush. Because this guy, he's gonna outdo you, I can promise you that. And if he can't, then I will be worried. Now, we're going to go back a bit to 1877 on the 8th of February. Karl Tanzler was born in Dresden, Germany. He grew up with his parents and his sister, and they lived a pretty normal life as a family unit. Karl was a curious chap, and he loved to travel. He spent time in countries including Australia, Italy, and India. He was also a very intelligent person. He worked as an engineer and also on the construction of boats. One day, he met a lady named Doris Schaefer, and the two ended up getting married and having 2 daughters. But due to Karl's love of travel, there was definitely a bit of strain on the relationship. Now, Karl had a wife. Obviously, he's got Doris, and we can assume he loved her, at least for a time, because there was a little something getting in the way of his ability to fully give himself to Doris, emotionally, you know? And that something was, in fact, a message he had received that he claimed was from an angel. This angel had visited Karl when he was younger and told him that he was destined to be with a beautiful woman. She would have flowing dark hair and glowing olive skin. She would be absolutely beautiful, and this wasn't just any woman. This was his soulmate. But there was a catch, and the catch was that this woman would not be found in Germany. Now, of course, Karl had married Doris since this dream, vision, exchange, but it had continued to play on his mind until one day he thought, do you know what? Actually, I quite like the sound of finding this gal, a beautiful woman who I've been told is my soulmate and who sounds absolutely perfect, and she is out there somewhere just waiting for me. Yeah, I think I want that. So, goodbye family. I'm just gonna up and go to America. Land of the free, sure to be a vast number of ladies out there. And, hope to meet her. So, bye. Karl eventually settled in Key West, Florida, and he decided he was going to give himself a fresh start. So, gave himself the new name Karl von Kozel. Karl found work at the United States Marine Hospital as a radiologist, and he did manage to successfully start this new life. He was a pretty independent guy. He just focused on doing his own thing, really, until one day he met a very special patient. The patient was 21-year-old Cuban-American Elena de Hoyos, and she was young and beautiful, and she had luscious dark hair. Maybe you see where I'm going to go with this. Elena was known to be a local beauty. She had many admirers, and not only was she so attractive, but she was also a very pleasant and gentle young lady. Now, Karl, when he saw her, he was just absolutely in awe, and he was sure that this was, in fact, the woman that the angel had described to him. Poor Elena, though, she was not in a good way. She was married to a man named Louis, and the two were expecting their first baby. But Elena, she had very sadly miscarried, and Louis decided, do you know what? Nah, I'm out. And he just left her. Not very nice. So poor Elena, her health had declined, and she'd gotten to the point where her mother had become so worried that she really thought her daughter needed to be seen by a professional. So she took her to the hospital where Carl worked, and of course, that is where he saw her. This woman who, when he did see her, identified her as the love of his life. Elena was examined by Carl, and unfortunately, he found that she was suffering with tuberculosis. This is a contagious bacterial disease that affects the lungs, and in this day and age, we can treat it with antibiotics, but obviously we are in the early 1900s right now, so TB was deadly, unfortunately. In spite of this not even being an area he was trained in, Carl decided that he would make it his mission to save Elena. So, yes, just to clarify, he doesn't know how to treat tuberculosis, but he thinks, I have the will, therefore I may have a way. And yeah, he literally got to work. He sent her home, but the home would now become almost like a ward because he moved in a whole lot of medical equipment, including x-ray machines. I have no idea how big these were, but I'm assuming they would have taken up a lot of space. I mean, look at how we have x-rays taken today. They have an entire room dedicated to them. And Carl didn't even ask to take these from the hospital. He literally just took them to Elena's home. He also brought round all sorts of electrical equipment and homemade medicines and remedies. And he also brought some other bits and pieces, jewelry, flowers, new clothes, very important things when it comes to attempting to heal a deadly case of tuberculosis, right? Carl even told Elena that he was in love with her, but sadly for him, she did not reciprocate his feelings. I mean, he was older than her. He first met Elena in 1930, which would have made him, 52, 53? And he was kind of eccentric, kind of zany, not really Elena's type. I mean, she was also still technically married to Lewis, so yeah. Now, very, very sadly, Elena ended up passing away from her illness the following year in October 1931. And Carl, he was absolutely distraught. He had not been able to save this woman, but not just any woman, this was his soulmate. In his eyes, of course. After her death, Carl actually went on straight away to pay for her funeral and a mausoleum, which was erected in the Key West Cemetery. Once she was buried, he went to her grave every single day to mourn. He was just totally heartbroken. Now, this is probably a bit much, because I mean, he was her doctor. Obviously, he had a big crush on his patient, but yeah, to go to this level of effort, visiting every day, and, obviously paying for everything, it just goes to show how important Elena was to him. A couple of years went by and Carl followed the same routine. Get up, go to work, go visit Elena. And supposedly, her ghost began to actually appear to him and she would go and sit with him. She would apparently tell Carl that he needed to take her from her grave. Of course, Carl was obsessed with Elena. And now her ghost is here telling him to take her body away with him. To which he's like, yeah. Okie dokie. So one night, Carl creeps through the cemetery, opens up the crypt, and takes Elena's body. Bearing in mind, it has also been 2 years since she died at this point, so she was pretty decomposed by now. Anyway, he loaded the body into a toy wagon and proceeded to bring it back home. Now, once he was back, Carl realized he was going to have to get creative. He used wire to reassemble the bones and, the skeletal structure. He even put a couple of glass eyes into the eye sockets. He stuffed cloth and rags into her torso area, which obviously padded it out, and he used strips of cloth he'd soaked in wax and plaster of Paris to become a makeshift skin. Not to be coarse, but I mean, this was a decomposing body, so there was a smell. Carl just figured that if he soaked her body in a whole load of perfume, he could quite easily overcome that small issue. So, yeah, He drenched the body in perfume and considered that a perfectly reasonable solution. Once Elena's body was all fixed up, he dressed it in fine clothes and jewelry, and his creation was complete. So, Carl's pretty happy now. He had been parted temporarily with his soulmate, but now he was reunited and they could be together forever. Aww. And when I say together, I mean it. Carl would sit Elena's body at the kitchen table and the two would have dinner together. They would also sit by the fire in the evenings, and they also shared a bed. I won't go into any detail here, but let's just say Carl truly considered this corpse bride to be his wife. I did read some rather disturbing pieces of information online about certain constructions, but I couldn't find anything that actually confirmed that. So this arrangement went on for 7 years. Now, obviously, Elena's body is constantly decomposing, but that was no problem for Carl. He had plenty of perfume and rags and wax to keep reapplying. That would ensure his lady was good to go. Carl really liked to spoil Elena. He was always shopping around for gifts and trinkets and anything he saw that she thought she might like. And soon, people started to talk, realizing Carl was always buying these gifts for a lady, but was never actually seen out with one. I'm not sure exactly who it was, but someone in the town had heard the rumors and decided to take a look for themselves. So one day they went by Carl's home, making sure he wasn't aware that they were around, and they had a look through the windows. Carl was supposedly seen dancing around with what seemed to be a giant doll. This news getting back to Elena's family, who obviously had an instant feeling something wasn't quite right. Bear in mind, they knew how highly Carl thought of Elena due to the fact that he paid for her funeral, burial, mausoleum, went to visit her all the time. So yeah, to them, it seemed like there could be something really fishy going on. One of Elena's sisters decided to go to Carl's home one day and pay him a visit to see if she could basically determine what the hell was going on. He invited her in, and this is when she found the preserved body of her sister. The police were involved straight away, and Carl was arrested, with Elena's body being taken to a local funeral home. He went to trial on the charge of wantonly and maliciously destroying a grave and removing a body without authorization, but he was ultimately let go as the case was dropped. Meanwhile, the funeral home put Elena's body on display to the public, and nearly 7,000 people came to see Tanzler's corpse bride. Strangely enough, the public did not appear to have much of an issue with Carl. There was no great wave of negative attention sent his way, and if anything, some just considered him a hopeless romantic. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but okay. Carl would end up living on until he was 75 years old, and he passed away himself in July 1952. After his trial, he lived out the rest of his life pretty unremarkably, although it is believed he had managed to keep hold of a death cast of Elena's head, which he then went on to use to construct a synthetic body for, and some believe he even died with this in his arms. And that's kind of it. What do you think about this case? It is, it's different for sure, but what do you make of Carl's actions? Sweet, romantic, or just, in my opinion, what they are? Plain creepy. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If there's anything you'd like to hear me cover in the future, please do let me know. Subscribe for more videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I'm currently aiming to submit a video a week, and I'm absolutely loving making these. So thank you so much for the support that has been shown already, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.